I'm at Spice Village in Kumali, in the garden under the shade of a spreading tamarind tree. And I'm about to do something that I've wanted to do for years, and that is show the Indians how to make a really good curry. First of all, we need to start off with a curry powder. Let's put a bit of heat under that pot. Now, a good curry powder can vary quite a bit, but there are essential spices that need to be in there. Cumin is one of the main spices that we have in a curry that gives it its very characteristic flavour. A really good quality turmeric helps to give quite earthy, deep notes and is very much an important part of giving both colour and flavour to the curry. We then have black pepper for its flavour as well as its heat. Coriander seeds amalgamate all the other spices together. Cardamom gives life and light to a curry and gives it a really beautiful fresh taste. Cloves, the pungency of cloves works well with all the other spices when it's used in fairly small proportion. Fenugreek we find in most Indian cooking. It has a slight beany bitterness to it, but when it's cooked through with the rest of the spices, again, it's all part of achieving that lovely curry balance. We always use a bit of chili powder for some heat, and ginger. They work very well together. We also use brown, or what's often called black mustard seeds, and cinnamon or cassia cinnamon, which is a slightly stronger version of cinnamon. And these spices are all blended together in varying proportions to make a curry powder. Now, what we've done is we've already made the curry powder up and ground it down. When you're making this recipe at home, you can really use your favourite curry powder. You don't have to feel absolutely constricted that it's got to be a really specific recipe. We start the process by lightly dry roasting the powder. Now, what that does is that gives a greater depth of flavour. When people tell you that roasting spices brings out the flavour, don't believe them. The reality is that roasting a spice makes the flavour more robust. In the same way that a piece of bread tastes different to a piece of toast, so a roasted spice will taste different to an unroasted one. So we roast this lightly, being careful not to let it burn. I'll just turn the heat down a little bit because that is getting a bit hot. Then we add some coconut oil, the classic ingredient, of course, in South Indian cooking. What we're starting to do now is make our curry paste. You don't need to go and buy expensive jars of curry paste in the supermarket. You can make up your own curry very easily indeed. And this is just the process that we're doing now. Now, once we've started to get that paste going, the next thing that we do is we add some panchphora. Panchphora is a blend of seed spices. The name panchphora comes from the word panch, which in Hindi means 5, and phora, or poron, which means seeds or spices. And these 5 spices all blend beautifully together to just, again, enhance the flavour of the curry. Once those seeds begin to pop, we will put in our onion, and we'll also add some garlic. And the idea is to just cook this down a little bit. Now, when we get to this stage, you'll also notice that sometimes the bottom of your pot will start to look a little bit dodgy, and you might think the spices are going to stick and burn. It's at that stage you just add a little bit of water. So this is all part of the process of creating your own curry paste. And all curries will have a little bit of a souring element to them. The souring element can be achieved easily at home by adding a squeeze of lemon, but what we like to do is to add some tamarind paste. And the tamarind paste is simply made by taking the flesh from the pods of the tamarind tree, and these are then soaked in water. They're macerated to soften them and force out the acidity that's in the tamarind. And then what you actually end up with is an acidulated liquid, and that's where you get this lovely flavour from. The next thing is to add the meat, and we're going to use some goat today, which is often referred to in India as mutton or lamb. But goat's a lovely meat. It's quite lean and has a good flavour. We only add a few pieces at a time. We don't put it all in at once, because what you want to do is to seal each of these pieces with that lovely spice paste. You can see that each piece is being nicely coated. If you pop them all in at once, you'll take too much heat out of the pan too quickly, and also all your meat won't get that nice sealing and coating on it. When you're making this recipe at home, something to keep in mind is that you don't, of course, have to use goat. You can use any sort of meat. You can use lamb and you can use beef. When you're using beef, don't buy a really high-priced cut of meat. You want a low-cost cut, a gravy beef, chuck, something that's actually got a little bit of sinew and fat in it, because during the long, slow cooking process that begins later, the sinews in that will gelatinise and you'll get really beautiful tender meat. I've often seen people who'll take a really expensive cut of meat and they'll use that for making their curry, and then they wonder why it's tough. And it was actually because the meat was too lean. Just going to add a little bit more water to that to stop it from sticking to the bottom of the pan. Now we've got to this stage, we're going to add some tomatoes, lovely little fresh tomatoes. You can always use a can of crushed tomatoes if you don't have some peeled whole tomatoes handy. You just break them up a little bit. You don't have to worry about crushing them up too much, because the long, slow cooking will actually make the onion soften very effectively. Not onion, tomato. So you don't have to worry about breaking these up too much while you're cooking, because the tomatoes will soften very easily during the long cooking process. When we get to this stage, we then add some tomato paste. Tomato paste is really a great boost to the flavour of curries. You'll find it being used in lots of different ones, and it works very well indeed. We're also going to put in a little bit of garam masala, and we just sprinkle it gently over the surface, like this. And we take our chaat masala, which is instead of salt, because chaat masala is a blend of a little garam masala. It also has black salt in it, which is an Indian salt, which has got quite a strong, distinct flavour, and asafoetida, which is used a lot in Indian cooking. And so we just sprinkle a little bit of the chaat masala over there, so that's our salting. And we'll pop in a few nice red chilies, and they'll just help to boost that heat level up a little bit. And naturally the ubiquitous curry leaves, which you really wouldn't find me cooking any dish without those. And we just pat that down a little bit, and then we turn the heat right down, cover it, and let it slow cook for about 2 hours. You can put it in an oven at around about 120 degrees. After that period of time, the curry is beautifully cooked, and you'll see the one that I made here earlier, how the colour has really come out there. It's cooked down beautifully. The meat is absolutely delicious and tender. A very easy meal to make at home, and as I said, one that I think we might be able to just teach the Indians a little teensy bit.